Hello, I'm Ruth Bergman, and I'm the Director of Education at the Holocaust Memorial Center, Zekelman Family Campus. I'm here today to interview Miriam Ferber, who was a hidden child during the Holocaust. But before I start talking to Miriam, I want to give some context. Out of the almost 1 million children who were alive in Poland in 1939, only 5,000 survived the war. And most of those children survived because they were hidden. So Miriam, it is wonderful to be here today talking with you. Thank you so much. It's a real honor to be able to talk about your story with us.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start by having you tell us a little bit about your family's life before the war. I know that you were born in 1942, but if you can give us any background about your parents, what they did, where they lived, what their life was like, that would really help give us some background.
Well, my family is from Chorzów. Chorzów is on a border, actually very close to Germany. And that's where they lived, and they had a beautiful life. My grandfather was a kosher butcher, and my father was a tailor. And they had a beautiful, beautiful life. My father married my mother in 19, I think, I don't remember exactly when she married her, but when they got married, they had a son, Leo, and they lived in Chorzów. When the war started, they were relocated to Sosnowiec. And that's where I was born, in Sosnowiec, which is close to, well, Poland is not such a large country, but it's closer. It was away a little bit from the German border, and they were just relocating. In 1942, they lived in Sosnowiec, and over there, the Polish righteous Gentiles befriended my family, my mother, father, and my brother. And they were friends, especially the two fathers were friends. But that friendship did not, the friendship was a real friendship. However, it didn't last too long because we were sent to Srodula ghetto. At that point, I was 7 months old. But one day, the Gentile Polish men, the righteous Gentile Polish men, and my father agreed that they will babysit for their young daughter, who was 7 months old, that someone will come to the, not someone, but the wife of the Gentile will come into ghetto, and she will take the child. And that's what happened. I don't know exactly what I'm telling you is what I was told, because I was born in 1942. So at that point, the Polish, I hate to talk about my Polish Gentiles because they became my family. They were the only family that I knew. So I rather, maybe I would refer to them as my Polish parents and Jewish parents. So this Polish woman, I don't know how she got the Star of David, she got the armband.
The armband.
Of David, and she walked into the ghetto as a Jew, took the band off, and walked out as a Gentile with a buggy and a little girl.
Wow.
And from that moment, I became part of their family. Of course, at that time, it was a it wasn't impossible to do things like that because it jeopardized their life, jeopardized the life of their family. I don't know whether they thought maybe it would be a babysitting job, or maybe they thought it would only take a while. But at one point, my Jewish mother came to see me, and she wanted to really know where I was because, as I said, the fathers were friends. The mothers were not such a, close friends. She wanted to know where I was. And she came in and held me very, very close to her heart and kissed me and left. She must have left during curfew, but she was very careful how to get back to the ghetto. Now, as my Polish mother later told me, that as she looked through the window, watching my mother walk out of the house, there was a beautiful tree, the weeping willow. And she seen my mother jump and take the leaf off. And my Polish mother decided that that was a certain omen, the omen that my mother, my Jewish mother, felt good where she left me, that I was in a safe place. And I was there. I was, of course, a little baby. That particular family they were older. They were in their 40s, and they had a daughter who was 18 years old and a son who was 16 years old. So we lived over there together. Her daughter was 18, and she left the house for whatever reason. She was not around. And about, I would say, 8 weeks before the war finished, unfortunately, the caretaker of the house, who became a Volksdeutsch. Volksdeutsch was someone who related to the Germans, who wanted to be in cahoots with them. She went to SS, and she said, there is a couple, older couple it was like a courtyard home. There were about 60 families. And she said, I think there is a Jewish child over there. And of course, the SS came in and arrested us, not only because they thought of me as a Jewish child, but because the Polish father listened to the radio, which was forbidden. And now we went to jail. We were arrested and interrogated. Of course, I didn't know anything. I was happy around the Germans, and I was cute. They started to talk to me German. They think because I'm Jewish, I would know Jewish, but I was looking at them sitting on their lap, playing with their guns. But my mother and my Polish mother and father were interrogated. He was put in one cell, and my mother and I, my Polish mother and I, in another cell. About 3 weeks later, they released us. Why did they release us? Because my Polish mother was like a tigress. She says, this is not a Jewish child. This is a illegitimate child of my daughter who ran away and left me this child on the footsteps. What am I supposed to do? Throw the child away? You can kill me. She was like a tigress fighting. And you know what? They believed her. But unfortunately, my Polish father was sent to Mauthausen because of the fact that he listened to the radio. And after the war, So now she had me back. She had me back at home, and I got very, very sick. I got so sick with scarlet fever, and she was looking for a doctor, even though there was curfew. She was all alone at home with me, and I was suffocated. And at that point, she was looking for a doctor. No doctor wanted to come. She took a chair and she walked even though it was curfew. But she walked from one doctor to another doctor to another. They all promised to come in the morning. But she heard there was a Jewish doctor, a woman doctor. So she ran there because she says, well, a woman doctor will have more compassion. Maybe she'll come and give me the first aid. Well, she knocked on the door. The woman opened the door and she said, under no circumstances I'm gonna go with you because it's curfew. I am going to say no and see you in the morning. So my poor mother, Polish mother, going down the stairs, see a caretaker of the building. And the caretaker looks at her and says, Mrs. Łączkowska, why are you so sad? Why are you crying? And she says, you know, my daughter is, I don't know what's gonna happen, but she's suffocating and no doctor wants to come. And I asked the woman doctor thinking that she would have more compassion, but she doesn't wanna go either. So the man looked at her and he says, of course she wouldn't come because she's a goddamn Jew. When my mother heard the word Jew, she made a U-turn, she went back, knocked on the door, and she said, I am going to take you with me because I have a Jewish child in my home and you have to help me. Well, the woman got scared and she went, she says, okay, but I want you to bring me back. So that's exactly what happened. She came, she gave me the first aid. My mother took her back. And of course, all the doctors in the morning came in, and that's how I was saved.
Wow. So Miriam, let me ask you, first, at that time then, you were about 3 years old? 4 years
old? At that time, 1945, I was 3 years old, yes.
So why do you think your Polish family was willing to take that huge risk to take you in?
Well, I tell you, you know what? I asked my mother many, many times. Maybe they didn't realize the danger. Maybe they thought it was a babysitting job. Maybe they thought it was a good deed. It was a mitzvah to do it.
Right.
They didn't know for how long. They were just good people. They were traditional Catholics. They were not devoted Catholics, but they were traditional. And I think that's why they did that. In fact, when they came here to United States for my son's bar mitzvah, her son came and she came, then my stepbrother, and they said they would do it over again. Wow. And I am always questioning because today I'm a mother and a grandmother. Would I do that? I don't know. Would I jeopardize my precious family? I don't know.
No, that's, you know, we can't know what we would do. And where that strength that they had came from is very admirable, and calling them righteous among the nations is absolutely amazing and the right thing to do. So before 1945, before this woman came and went to the SS and, you know, kind of ratted your family out, how did your Polish family explain your presence? I mean, all of a sudden, there's
an illegitimate child of her daughter.
So that's the story that they told everybody.
Right. So they told that they were grandparents, and the child was a legitimate child of their daughter who ran away, because if the Germans would take her blood and mine, they would right away know what's going on. So she had to run away.
So after the war, you, of course, continued to live with your Polish family. What was life like for Jews in Poland after the war?
Well, I can't tell you too much about the Jewish people in Poland because I did not know I was Jewish. I did hear some stupid stories of especially during Easter, that Jewish people would grab the young children and kill them for the blood.
Right.
I was afraid of Jewish people because I thought they were not such a great, people, because they were killing young children.
Right.
I was a devoted Catholic. I went, of course, my mother had to, when I went to school, my mother had to baptize me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was baptized, I went to communion, I went to all kinds of sacraments, I went through. And I was a devoted Catholic for a while, but then later on I was a little bit, I didn't, when I started to go to to church, and we had to go to the priest to confess, I was kind of discouraged because priest would ask questions that we didn't have any idea about. Our generation did not sleep around. Our generation didn't do things that the new generation is doing. And sometimes the priest would ask inappropriate questions, and at that point I was questioning. First of all, there was a very big knot in my stomach because since I was 12, 13, 14, they called me Jew. Everybody there were 60 families, and everybody knew I was Jewish. And the little children heard from their parents that I'm Jewish, so they called me Jewish. Every time I would come to my mother and say, Mom, why are they doing that? Because you're beautiful, because you look like a gypsy. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. However, when I was 16 years old, there was a huge emigration, 1956, 58, there was a huge emigration to Israel. Mm-hmm. And at one point, my mother was afraid that somebody's gonna come and get me, really get me. And I never forget that year, 1958. So many things, different things happened in that year, but one of them was I was standing in the doorway, and we were very poor. We were very poor, even though in 1945, right after the war, of course, my mother and father never came, but one of my uncles came back. He came in and he says, I am the uncle of Miriam and I would like to take her with me. And my Polish mother said, no, it's only 3 months after the war. I cannot give her to you. Maybe her parents will come. And ever since then, he left. They were in New York. They forgot about my existence too. My mother was the only child, but there was 2 uncles, my father's brothers, and 1 sister. So here we are, very, very poor. And it's Easter. I mean, to the poor, that the woman, I don't know how she survived. She was a widow, and she used to sew gloves for factories, and she would take it, bring it home, and she would sew it, and she would take it. She was an unbelievable woman. And she sits in the kitchen, and I'm standing in the doorway, and she says to me, we such orphans. We both such orphans. And she's crying. And I said, Mom, I don't feel it. I have you. I love you. And I don't feel that we are orphans. And then she began to tell me who I was. And Ruth, I just want you to know that all of a sudden, that knot that I had in my tummy disappeared.
Hmm.
because she validated something that I was suspicious of. However, I didn't want any changes, and I knew there would be changes.
So let me ask you. So you say that you felt relieved. I mean, that not went away in terms of your Jewish identity, but you didn't want any changes. But I understand that you had said that you did become close with some of the Jews of the town. So no, that's not accurate.
Oh, honey, never. I never, no, Jewish, first of all, when I found out I was Jewish and I went to the club over there, they didn't want to bother with me because they were busy with their own problems. They were living, they were really and truly not into, taking me in and helping me, It's not they were bad. They had their own surahs. They had to leave the country.
Right, right. No, I understand. So what happened after you had this revelation, after you were told that you were Jewish?
Nothing. I was in school. I was very popular because not only I was pretty, but I played guitar, I sang, I recited, and I was a good student. And I had a lot of boys around me. And every time I went on a date with a boy, some kids would call me Jude, Jude. So I right away said to the guy, I'm Jewish. And I was proud. I was proud to be Jewish. I thought Jewish was something special, and I felt good about it. I never could, and I never, some people tell me that they lived in Poland and so much anti-Semitism. Maybe it was, but not me, because I was so popular. All my friends, I keep in touch with them until today. My elementary school friends, my high school friends, the ones I went after I finished my high school, I was in a theater school. So the friends from the theater that became stars come and visit. So I never, I had a good life. Poor, very poor, but surrounded with love. And I loved it. And the moment I found out I was Jewish, I knew there will be a change. There was no way for me to stay in Poland.
So what was the impetus for you to leave Poland? How did that come about?
So my uncles, and I don't want to talk against them, they all dead, and I gave them a lot of naches. My uncles reminded themselves about the fact that I'm in Poland after 18 years.
Wow.
Why? Because Rabbi Schneerson, the Lubavitcher rabbi, went on national radio or television, I know, and he was sending his colleagues to Poland to look for Jewish children. So they had the address. My Polish mother lived there for 50 years. People don't move. So it was very easy for a rabbi, and the rabbi who came in 1960, honey, he shaved his beard and the payas and came as a gentleman, shook hands with my mother, shook hands with me, came with someone who would translate because I didn't speak English and I didn't speak English. They knocked on my door and they said, my uncles want me to come to United States, but it's going to be very hard. Nobody left Poland in 1960. It was a communist country. So you come to Belgium. My mother was frantic. She sees a nice looking man. She thought, who knows where he is taking me? So she decided I will let her go to Belgium only if I go with her. And we ended up in Antwerp among very, very religious Jews. Hasidim, some of them in Netura Karte,
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I ended up with my mother waiting for a visa to United States as an exchange student.
Wow.
So
Yeah. So
then my
you,
mother, she had change of heart. One day she would allow me to go. The other day she says, why are you leaving me alone? She knew there was no future for me in Poland, but on the other hand, she was reluctant. Why are you leaving me, you know?
right. Did you know once you discovered, you were told about your Jewish identity, did you ever meet in Poland other hidden children?
Yes, they came. Not while I was in Poland, to Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
They did the same procedure when this particular rabbi, he happened to be a rabbi who jeopardized his life also coming to, he went to a lot of towns and brought a lot of children to Belgium. So in Belgium, there were 5 of us. But some went back. Some didn't want to have anything with the religion. I was fascinated with the religion. Why? Because I had a teacher that looked like Moses. He was a rabbi, very known Rabbi Chaim Kreisler. I'm sure your husband knows him. He was a scholar. He was the rabbi in Chicago, and then he was the rabbi of Antwerp, 12,000 Jews. And he was not a Lubavitch, but he was religious. He didn't have payas. His payas were clean cut, but beard and so on. And whatever time I spent with him was a minimal. I was fascinated with the Jewish religion. And I don't want to say anything against Catholic religion, but Jewish religion had no special miracles. There was pure psychology. And I loved it. I loved what I learned, but I became extremely religious. Why? Because I was surrounded with all the religious people, and I thought that's the only way to be.
So you, first of all, I have to say, it must have taken incredible resilience and strength for you to leave home, go to Belgium. You were, leaving a Catholic country, and now you're introduced to Judaism. It was a communist country, and now you're in a democracy. And then you come to New York, and you went to Stern College, or the plan was for you to go?
Yes, I went to Stern College, and then I went to, when I arrived in New York, there was like 30 people waiting for me at the airport because I was the child of my uncles, and of course the rabbi was there, but he was with his beard and with his face and so on, and his wife and their children that I spent a lot of time in Switzerland with them, but that's another story. And my uncles, come, how can I come to you and to you? I don't know you. You forgot about my existence. If you would have sent $5 a month between the 3 of you, we would have food. I didn't tell them that,
Right.
but that was in my thoughts, And of course, I stayed with one uncle because he was religious for all the wrong reasons, but his wife was also a very religious woman. So I stayed with them and went to Stern College, and then visited my aunt in Detroit. My aunt, the 2 brothers of my father were in New York. My aunt was in Detroit. When I came to Detroit, I didn't know how famous I was, but everybody expected me. Not only they expected me, there was a party, neighborhood party. There was like 300 people, and my aunt schlepped me there with a guitar, and I came on the stage and started singing.
Wow.
Okay, that time, Fred Ferber walked in with a date because he already knew that a girl from Poland came in, and he wanted to meet her. So anyway, he walked in with a date, but he left very, very fast the next morning he called me, and the rest is history. What can I tell you?
That's
When
incredible.
I met him, I felt I didn't fall in love. I loved this man to the point that we had so much in common, and he's a Holocaust survivor, very positive, very, he's not only positive, but he teaches positive, to teaches forgiveness and empathy, and he's loving and caring, and we married 57 years, Kanahora, and have 16 grandchildren that I wear on my neck all the time.
So let me ask you, and it's an incredible story, and like I said, your resilience and your ability to just deal with all of these changes, including learning English and just diving right into life. Why do you think it's important for people to come to the Holocaust Memorial Center and learn about the Holocaust?
Well, when I tell my story about how righteous Gentile couple saved my life and brought me up as their daughter, young people can relate to this story because it's one story. My husband always tells me that you can't comprehend that the 6 million people died. Right. It's over their head. So it is crucial to educate young people. And when you do, you have to be very careful how you teach Holocaust. You have to do with empathy. And it is easier for students to relate to one little girl like myself, to help them understand the broader context of the Holocaust. If they are taught carefully, young minds can grasp the complexity of the Holocaust and find a way to relate to it. My message helps to explain that when given the opportunity, like the righteous Gentiles, my family, my Polish family with their heroism, who saved me, people should not be bystanders. When they see acts of anti-Semitism or prejudice, they should act. They should do the best they can. So that's my message, but one has to be very careful when one teaches Holocaust.
What I'd like to know, Miriam, more than individual stories, is where you think your strength came from and your resilience and your ability to adapt to learning about your Jewish identity, to be able to move, first to Belgium and then to the United States. This is a lot for you to go through at a very young age. And where do you think that strength that you have, and it's so clear to this day that you have that strength, where does that come from?
Well, I tell you, it was a trauma. It definitely was a trauma to come from a Catholic religion to Jewish, which I really didn't care about the Catholic religion. There was a lot of things that I couldn't understand, how a priest can be authority on husbandhood and mother and fatherhood, and I didn't understand that. So that was easy to leave it alone. But the fact to separate with my mother and thinking that I may never see her again, because it was a communist country, that was a big trauma. But I tell you, the Judaism and knowing where I belong finally gave me strength. And I really and truly love Jewish religion. The Lubavitch or the Hasidim or the Natura Karte, that's overwhelming for me. I would never be, but I like my conservative way. And I admire the people who are Shomer Shabbos and they do but I do not like extremes. I don't like the Quran extreme. I don't like the Jehovah extreme. I don't like the Judaism extreme. So I feel my strength comes from finding out I was Jewish. I was born Jewish, and just being able to be free and to be able to meet someone that I went through life with and I'm going through. That's my strength. That is my strength. And I'm so happy to be Jewish.
Miriam, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and telling your incredible, incredible story. It is so important that we know the stories of these hidden children and all of the stories of not only the people who perished in the Holocaust, but those who survived and were able to tell their stories and share them with us. We educate our public not only about the history of the Holocaust, but the lessons that we take away from it, especially those lessons that Miriam talked about: personal responsibility and choice. Miriam's adoptive family made a powerful and dangerous choice to save Miriam. They are role models for us all. Every individual can make a difference, and no act is too small. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. And if you'd like to learn more about Miriam's story, please come visit our museum and check out our Portraits of Honor section, where you can learn all about her and her story and her family. Thank you again for joining us. Have a good night.